Good evening, everyone. Welcome to once again to our meetings in English in here at Cantinho. It happens every second Monday of each month. So once a month we have the meeting in English. It's been a tradition for I don't know, maybe about 10 years now, I guess. So I think so. I don't know. I have to look back, but it's been a while. So once a month we gather here just to think about Spiritism and the message of Jesus in English, so that we can also, not only learn the message as well, but since we are here in the United States, to also talk about Jesus in English as well. Then we get to know a little more of the words and the vocabulary, and we are able to probably reach someone that only speaks English, which is not hard in this country. So, but as we usually do, we follow the the sequence of the Gospel according to Spiritism, and we are on chapter 10. So we are following the items on chapter 10. But before that, we're going to have Nancy. She will come here and talk a little about a message from the book Our Daily Bread. And after that, I'll come back and talk about the items on chapter 10. But before all that, let's do a brief prayer so that we connect even more with the good spirits and with our Master Jesus and with God as well, by saying with our minds but also with our hearts how grateful we are to be here tonight once again. So thank you, God, for allowing us and for being here with us once again to study, to think about, but also, and most importantly, to feel the message of love, of compassion that your gospel reached us through our dear friend, our master, our brother, our beloved Jesus. So may him and may the good spirits that are always around us here in this center, but wherever we go, may them all bless us, the ones who are here now, the ones who are listening to us over the internet, and also to those ones who are discarnated but are also here listening and sharing these moments with us. So with this prayer, we would like to be able to start our meeting with our hearts full of love and full of peace. So be it. So let's invite Nancy, and she will talk to us a little bit, and she will explain what she's going to do here. Nancy.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I have a message from the book Our Daily Bread from Chico Xavier through the Spirit of Emmanuel. The number of this message is 136, and the title is Conflict. So I find this law at work. When I want to do good, evil is right there with me. This is who said was Paul in a letter to the Romans, chapter 7, verse 21. The sincere disciples of the Gospel, as described by Paul of Tarsus, encounter enormous conflicts in their own being. As the rule, they confront enormous difficulties in their testimonies. In the precise instance that they wish to reveal the presence of the divine companion in their heart, one word and one momentary attitude betrays them before their very conscience, indicating the persistence of prior weaknesses. The majority experience sensations of shame and pain. Some attribute those falls to the influence of evil spirits and generally seek this enemy in an exterior plane, when in actuality they should heal the undesirable cause within, which places them in tune with evil vibrations. It is unquestionable that we still find ourselves very far from a region in which we can be exempt from adverse vibrations. However, it is important to verify the observation given by Paul within each one of us. While mankind maintains itself either in cold indifference or in restless obstinacy, it is not called upon to a pure analysis. However, as soon as it awakens to the renovation, its inner camp turns into a battlefield. Against this oscillating aspiration for righteousness, each day that goes by, a heavy, a heavy baggage of accumulated shadows rises in our soul that has transpired in prior centuries. It is indispensable, therefore, that we observe great serenity and resistance on our part in order that the progress thus achieved is not lost. The Father concedes us the clarity of today so that we might forget the darkness of yesterday in preparation for tomorrow, on the path of the imperishable light. Conflict. So, Paulo de Tarsus, he wrote this letter to the Romans, and he he's saying to them that he encountered enormous conflicts in his own being. Interesting that he wrote this letter when he was converted to Paul. We know he was Saulus and converted to Paul of the Tarsus. The conflict that he is telling us on this letter is talking about the weaknesses he's feeling inside him. What happened is the one day we wake up and we decide, you know what, from now on, starting today, I will be a better person no matter what. Every single day, in every single situation. And we feel good about it, okay? We at home thinking about it and say, you know what, I will do this. But on the very next day, we go out and we get together with other people. We go to work, or we go to a family reunion, or we'll get together with friends, and we see that it does not work like this. It's not in a blink of my eyes that I will be a better person. Then I go back to home and I say, you know what? I will do a better person. I will make a list. And I say, well, I will be more patient, I will be more charitable, I will be more indulgent, I will understand better other people's reasons to do whatever they do, I will not judge others, and I promise to myself that I will be a better person. You know what? I will be less selfish, less proud. I will not criticize too much, whatever they do. Then I will socialize with people. And guess what? It happens again. That feeling starts to show up inside me again. So what he's trying to show us that we have to work on it, we have to work every day and try to be a better person, but we have to realize this thing, it will not happen in one day, right? We have to make this exercise, and we have to realize that we have the tendency to see people's shortcoming, people to see their deficiency, but there is in us also, right? So it's important to know that the nature, Chris used to say this word, this sentence, the nature doesn't take lips. And we have to work on ourselves every single day. Do not give up. Jesus recommended us, quotation mark, know yourself. This is the only way to better yourself. When I say yourself, I'm talking to me, to get a better version of me. That's what I have to try. Everybody has to try. This is a famous Spiritist sentence that I really like it, and it says, the true Spiritist follower is that one who make all efforts to be a better person. So the message tonight is telling us everybody has conflicts, inner conflicts, and don't forget to work every day, and we will be a better people if we work hard enough. Thank you very much.
Now it's my turn. Now it's my turn. And, well, this message was, well, the messages are always very interesting, anyways, but this message is really interesting because of what we are going to talk here tonight about. Like I was saying, we're going to talk about the Gospel according to Spiritism. This is one of the books of the translations that we have. For those, if there's anyone watching us online, there's another translation that's right here. You cannot see it, but if you were online, you would see the book right here. Um, and they're basically the same. Of course, the book was written in France or in French in 1864. So there are different translations of it. And the item that I'm going to read and I'm going to talk about is items number 9 and 10. Like I said, from chapter 10, which is blessed are the merciful. So it's one page of the book. It's one page of the book. It starts right here and goes to the back of the page and goes up to here. So it's one page of the book, and it's a very very interesting message that Kardec takes a small piece from the Gospel of Matthew, which is in the Sermon on the Mount, um, that big speech that Jesus gave, and we tend to say that he climbed up the mount, sat down, and started talking to people. This lasts 3 chapters in the Gospel of Mark, and as we like to say from time to time, there's this sentence from Mahatma Gandhi, which is a great philosopher and religious person um, of the last century. He was Hindu, and he was once talking about Christianity and about the belief and about Jesus and about and people were talking to him about it, and he said 2 things that are very very to me are very very tell a lot about, first, who he was or who he is, and about the way that he sees the teachings of Jesus. So the first thing that he says that I like I find it to be very very interesting is he says the problem with Christianity is not in the message. The problem with Christianity is with the Christians. So he is saying, and he says that, and after that, he also, of course, mentions, or not of course, but he also says that about any other religion in the world. That the problem, and I'm saying this, the problem with the religions, it's usually not what the message says. It's much more of what we are and how we take the message and practice the message, or we don't practice the message and we still say that we are that message. So it is more or less to me as if we're saying, oh, I'm a good mathematician. I like math and I study math a lot. And then the person asks you, how much is 1 plus 1? And then the person says, it's 3. Right? It is to me, that's the same thing as if you're saying that you're Christian and you're dishonest and you're full of pride and you hate other people and you don't forgive other people. To me, it's exactly the same thing. Because why and how would you say that you are a mathematician and then you make mistakes on the most basic of things? If it's a very complex thing, I understand that we cannot be the top of everything. But if you're making mistakes, and if we are making mistakes on the very basic, we have to be more careful of what we are saying. So what Gandhi says to me is it teaches us a lot about how do I think of and about myself. I follow Spiritism. I like Spiritism. I study Spiritism. Therefore, I am a Christian. So, what am I doing with the teachings that I receive, that I study? Am I applying to other people or am I applying to myself? It's like once something that we say here quite frequently as well, when we say, oh, I'm listening to this, say, this wonderful lecture from, I don't know, Rossandro Klingen or Haroldo Dutra Dias, or whoever it is. It doesn't matter the name, Divaldo, or doesn't matter. And then I think I hear something that they're saying, and then we say, oh, I wish that someone, that my husband or my wife or my daughter or my boss was here. I wish they were here. Why? Is it for them or is it for me who are there? So it is very, very important for us to really understand that the message that we hear, the message that we understand, the message that we study, it may be for the others, but it's in the first place for me. It is for me. So that's one of the things that I take from what Gandhi says in that sense, that the problem with Christianity is not with the message, it is with us. It is with the Christians. The other thing that he says that in this verse relates a lot to what we're going to talk about. We're already talking about it in a certain way. But the other thing that he says that I like a lot, and that's a little bit of an introduction to what um, I was saying about the Sermon on the Mount, that Jesus, walked up the mountain or the mount and then started talking. Is that he says, if we got the whole gospel, all the messages of Jesus, the entire gospel, and if we get a Bible, let's say that this is the Bible, and this is not, of course, but let's say that this is a Bible, right? And we are seeing how thick it is, right? So, and then we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. The New Testament is basically uh, some part of it is the words of Jesus, right? And then there are the letters of Paul, the letters of the disciples and the apostles, and then there's Apocalypse at the end, right? And the Acts of the Apostles. So if we take only the part that Jesus talks and the message of Jesus straightforward, um, and we add, some of the letters and so on, more or less, this would be from the whole book, this would be what Jesus taught. All the rest is the Old Testament. I'm not saying that is not important. I'm only comparing so that you can see how big is the difference of how many words and how much stuff there's in the Old Testament and the New Testament. What Gandhi says, which I agree with as well, is that if we take the message of the New Testament only, and we take only the Sermon on the Mount, which are the messages that Jesus spoke in 3 chapters of one gospel, it would be like maybe 2 or 3 pages long. And he says, if we throw away this part, and we throw away this part, and we keep only these 3 pages or 4 pages or whatever it is, it's a very small amount. All the rest is in these 3 pages. Because his teaching on the Sermon on the Mount is almost as if he shrinks down everything to these sayings, to these teachings, and you can go deep and deep and deep in each one of his sayings. And it has so much packed in this brief sermon. So I don't know how much time he spent saying these things, but I have to say that if we read these pages, it will not take more than an hour. So imagine how much stuff, how much goodness he said in 1 hour of his life. That's what Gandhi says. He says if we remove everything else and we keep only the Sermon on the Mount, we are good to go for a very good existence, for a very good life. So the part that we are studying tonight, or that we are reading a little bit tonight and talking about, is one item of these 3 pages or 4 pages. And I'm already talking about it, and I already spoke a little bit in about 10 minutes, a little bit about what he's going to say. He says here. And he says I'm going to read it, and I'm just going to look at the clock and see how much time I take to read this. It's just this piece. So it's on that clock right there, 7:25, which is already past. So he says, why do you look at the speck of dust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the beam in your eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a beam in your own eye? you hypocrites. First take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. It's less than 30 seconds. And I already spoke about 10 minutes. So he said that in less than a minute. And we can talk about this for hours and hours just to see how much he has stuffed and packed in one small saying. So these words are not very common. At least for us, non-native English speakers. If you say a speck, it's not a word that we use every day in our day-to-day use, right? It's not something that if I say here, for example, door, everybody knows what a door is, because it's something that we have every day. But if we say speck, what is speck? A lot of people will not know what speck is. Of course, if you were natives, we would know it, but we are not. So a speck is a very, very small piece of wood or something that, when you get um, um, like you're walking around and then all of a sudden there's something in your eye and you start to scratch it, something entered your eye and it's very small. We have the word for that in Portuguese, of course, which is argueiro, right? So that's what speck is. It's a very small piece of dust or a very small piece of wood or whatever it is that goes into your eye. So that's a speck. Speck is something very small, right? And what is a beam? Also, not everybody knows because it's not a very common word. It's not something like, so if you have if you say light, everybody knows what light is, right? If you say a lamp, everybody knows what a lamp is. If you say microphone, probably everybody knows what it is. Right here we have one. But if we say beam, not everybody knows what it is, once again. So a beam is as if it's a ray. It's something that extends very long, right? So we say a beam of light. So it's a ray of light that goes from where the light is coming. We don't see the beam, but we know it's there because the light is shining on us. But also physically, we have something that we call a beam. And I guess that on the computer, you're not going to see it because you can't see it. But right above my head, there's this thing right here, right? Which is one of the parts of the structure that holds the ceiling. This is a beam. This piece here is a beam. In Portuguese, we call this a viga, right? So this is a beam. The one that's in vertical, it's called a column, which is easier because it's closer to what in Portuguese is coluna, right? So this is a beam. So a beam is something that holds something up and it's in a horizontal position, right? So it's a beam. And we can have these in steel, like this one, but we also have these in wood as well. So a beam is a piece of wood or metal that's long and small in the other directions, and it's very long. So the same in what Jesus is saying, right? And now I guess that everybody, when I read it, I guess you will know what he's talking about. So he uses the words speck, which is a small piece, and beam, which is a long piece, right? And in Portuguese, the translation is a little different, but it's the same idea. The speck and the beam in the eye. So what Jesus says, why do you look at the speck of dust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the beam in your own eye? So why do we see small things in other people's lives and we don't see the big things in our own eyes? or our own lives. That's what Jesus is asking us. Why does this happen? Why is it so easy for us to see what the other one is doing wrong, and for us not to see that I am doing maybe the same thing, or what Jesus is saying, doing something that's even worse than what the other person is doing? Because he's comparing the speck on the other person's eye to a beam in my eye. So we see like the small piece in daughter's eyes, but I don't see the big piece of wood in my own eye. And this is very, very interesting, because this is something that I find it very interesting, at least because this is so true. This is so true. It is amazing how true that is. And once, I like this story, not because it happened to me or with me in the story, but because it brought to my attention something that I had thought about it, but I never really um, stopped to think about it a lot. So um, I used to when I moved together with my wife. Um, I used to work with my brother in his office. Then after a while, um, I found a different job, and I started working for this delivery company. Um, I started working for FedEx. So um, in the beginning, I used to drive my car to go to work and come back to work. So that's what I used to do. And then my daughters were growing up. My younger daughter was 2 at the time, around 3 or 4 at the time. And then, of course, she, growing up, and after 2 or 3 years, she was already 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly when this happened, how old she was. But then, after a little while working there, my boss said, "Oh, it's better if you drive the truck home. So if you have a place to park the truck in your house or where you live in your apartment." And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna ask, and if they allow me to park the truck there, I'll drive the truck back home." It was easier because I would go straight and come back instead of having to drive a few more miles. So what happened was I started to drive this truck back home every day, right? Every day, every day. So my daughter one day comes to me. That's the youngest one. She was, like I said, 5 or 6 or whatever. She comes to me, and you guys, the ones who are here at least know her, right, and know how she is and how she talks, and she's very, very like pay attention to everything. And so she comes to me and she says, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. You know, I never saw a FedEx truck before you started driving to FedEx. Now I see a FedEx truck everywhere I go." Yeah, that's Amanda. So she came to me and she says, "Why? Why do I see FedEx trucks everywhere now? I never saw a FedEx truck before." So I stopped and I asked her, because that small thing to me, it's so powerful, because I remember it as if it's today, as if it's happening today. And a few months ago or a few years ago, she is now 17, right? So I asked her if she remembered that, and she said, "No, I don't remember," which is very interesting. So you see how powerful the thing was to me, and to her it was just one more thing that happened in her life, but to me it was so strong, because when she came to me and I started thinking, say, of course there were lots of FedEx trucks everywhere. Of course. It was not just because I started working that FedEx trucks started sprouting from the ground and then driving around. Of course not. So why is it that she started to see those FedEx trucks right there? It was never brought to her attention. She didn't know it. It was just one more thing out there. And she had to pay attention to so many other things that a FedEx truck didn't have anything that's important to her. Now, all of a sudden, right, because I work at FedEx and she relates me to that truck, every time she sees a truck that looks like mine or the logo, she will remember me and then she will see it. So that made me really, and now that not now, I already thought about this before, but now that we're talking about a speck in the eye of the other, how can I see a speck in the eye of the other? Was was the truck outside already before I started working? It was. But why did she start noticing the truck outside? Because she got aware of it. Why did she get aware of it? Because it was brought to her attention. So she knows it. She knows the truck, right? Why does she know it? Because I brought her in. Because she would see me driving it. Because she would be uh, around the truck sometimes. She would go inside the truck with me. She would sit on the chair of the truck. She would fake that she was driving. And then she would run inside and she would go outside and I would show her how to do this and how to do that. So she knows the truck. She really knows it. Now that made me think, if I'm seeing that Christiane or Sila or Dora has a problem, a an issue, and I start noticing more and more and more, hmm, how do I know that thing so much? How do I know the problem that you have if I don't know it? So that can mean two things. Either I study it and I don't have the problem, but I study the problem. Just like Christiane, for example, that clean houses, and my wife as well. When they go to places, not that they do, I think that they don't do this all the time, but if they stop a little bit and are doing nothing, they start noticing things that are out of the place that could be cleaned better. Why? I don't think about that. Why? Because it's not something that I do it every day. But I work, say, let's say I am a lawyer, or I am a doctor, or I am a nurse, or I am an engineer, or I am whatever. It doesn't matter. Then I go to a certain place, I'm going to start noticing those things. If I am a cook, right, and I go and I'm going to eat something in a restaurant and I start eating, that's my wife. She loves to cook. And when she goes to a restaurant or something and start eating and she loves the food, what she does, she grabs the food, puts in her mouth, and starts like tasting to see if she can recognize what types of spices. Oh, they put like um, whatever. I don't know the names of all the spices, but oh, they put this thing this thing here. Oh, they have garlic here. They have whatever. And then she starts like trying to flavor every little thing so that she can remember and do it similar at home. Why? Because that's what she developed. She started studying it and she started knowing about it. So that's one thing. I can study something and or do something a lot, and then I'll be able to see in the other. But the other explanation, which is also true, is if I really know or if I have that same problem inside myself, that's the best way to know why Dora is this way, why Christiane is this way, why Sila is this way, because I know what it is to be like she is. And that's a very important thing to remember, that if I am seeing a problem in the other person, I have to be very, very careful to see if I am not the same way as the other person, or even worse. Because if I'm seeing it such a small thing in the other person, it might as well be that I'm even worse than the other person. So that's something that we really need to be very careful. And that's what Jesus is trying to, one of the things that he's trying to tell us is that, look, be aware of how you are looking at other people, because you might be doing something much worse than they are doing in the same way, or you or having the same type of problem. Of course that it's not always that I have it, like I said, but it is a very good, those cartoons that you're watching, then all of a sudden one of the cartoons, like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, then they remember something or they have a big idea. What happens? Like this big like light, right, shines on him, like he had an idea. So it's the same thing. If I am seeing someone's defect or someone's problem, someone's issue, I have to be aware of, whoa, pay attention. Am I looking at him or am I looking at myself? And that's one big thing for us to think about. One big, big thing. And that's what Jesus is inviting us to do, is to think about one of the things that he's asking us to think about. What are you watching on other people? Because the others are like mirrors to us. It's very common, very, very common, that what we see on the others, it is almost as if I'm looking myself in the mirror and I'm seeing on the other person myself. That's why it's so easy to understand the issues. And because, moving forward, because we are so, um, like Nancy was saying here before, um, message 136 from our daily bread, right? And I find that this was a very matching pair when Paul says, and I'm going to read just the quote from Paul that she read right at the beginning of tonight's meeting. He says to the Romans, so I find this law, look what Paul says, I find this law. He realized that this is something that's so powerful within himself. It's so powerful inside of him that he calls it a law. Almost like saying that he has to obey that. That's how powerful that thing is inside of him. And of course, that laws can be changed, but it takes how much time to change a law? It takes a lot of time, and depending on the law, it might never be changed. Here in the United States, for example, there are some laws that require that more than 75% of the Congress agree with changing it. You know what 75%? In a room full of 100 people, more than 75 people, 76 people need to say, okay, we are changing the law. How easy it is that 75 people in 100 people in politics can agree. It is very hard. So there are some stuff that are very hard to change. So Paul says, I find this law within me. Whenever I want to do good, evil is with me. Every time I want to do a good thing, I notice that evil is inside of me. So, as if he's saying, I have this problem within me and I am aware of it. And I need to be careful because I have to make a big, big effort to go over it and to really do what I need to do. And it is hard. It is not easy. So when Jesus says or invites us to think about the speck that's in the other person's eye, while I have that big beam inside my eyes, I have to be aware and I have to think about, okay, should I be seeing that? Shouldn't I be noticing the other way around? Shouldn't I be noticing that the other person has a lot of good things in them instead of me criticizing them? So I'm going to give a few examples of Jesus, because if you talk about good examples, then a person might say, and these days are even worse because of this all this cancel culture. You see a person doing something wrong, and then all of a sudden that person is the worst person in the world. You're not going to see anything more from her or from him, and we're going to throw it away, everything that the person did. Remember, forgetting that if people would do this to us, it would be every single day, would be canceled as soon as we are born. So everybody will be canceled at one point because we all make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So when we're doing, giving these examples, I like to think about, getting examples from people that, even if they made mistakes, which Jesus is not the case, but even if they made mistakes or I don't agree with something, a lot of the things that they said or they did are really good and serve as good examples. So let's think about Judas. We being Christians, we know who Judas is. We know what he did, but I'm just going to remind everyone that in around the last days before Jesus was crucified, Judas went to see some important officials, and he thought that Jesus needed money. That's basically what we understand that Judas did. He thought that Jesus needed money, which it is true, right? Everybody needs money to do what they need to do. But and the idea is that he thought that Jesus needed money to build the kingdom of God. How are you going to build a kingdom without money? He, unfortunately, for his comprehension, he didn't understand what the kingdom of God was, what Jesus was talking about. So he thought that Jesus would need money to build like a church, a temple, a synagogue, whatever. So he went there and said, hey, you give me a certain amount of money, I'm going to give you Jesus. And Jesus, of course, with all the power and all people around him, will be able to escape and will use the money to do whatever. Of course, Jesus doesn't do it, right? That's not what Jesus wanted. That's not what. So we, as a tradition, and I don't know if you guys know, but I'm pretty sure that Sila, because we share the same background in terms of where we lived, we have this tradition of, in Brazil, at least in the northeastern part, we have this tradition of, we call it malhar o Judas, but maybe everybody knows what it is. We put like um, a doll, a big doll, and then we start to hit that big doll, and that's a Judas. And why do people do that? Because Judas was the big traitor, right? Why do we do that? The last message of Jesus was, Father, forgive. They don't know what they're doing. And we, after 2,000 years, we keep doing this to a, a doll or a puppet that represents that man who betrayed Jesus. But Jesus already forgave Judas and already forgot everything that happened. But we keep doing the same thing. Jesus didn't look at Judas as the traitor. Jesus looked at Judas as a friend. He calls him friend after Judas betrayed him. And in a book in the Spiritist collection of books, a psychography by Chico Xavier, I think it's Humberto de Campos that tells the story, that after Jesus uh, dies, in spirit, he goes after Judas because Judas killed himself. Of how much um, how of how bad he felt for what he did to Jesus. Because what he did, then Jesus got imprisoned and then was killed. So Judas killed himself with so much guilt that he had inside. But Humberto de Campos tells us in a story that Jesus went after Judas after he died to rescue him and say, I am here for you. I am your friend. So what did he say? Did he see the speck in the eye of Judas? No. He saw that Judas is a spirit that makes mistakes, like I make mistakes, like we make mistakes. But we are apparently better than the others, right? That's probably why we see so much speck on the other's eyes and we don't see any on ours, because we don't have any. Or have we? I think we do. If we are here incarnated, we share the same kinds of diseases, the same types of problems, the same types of difficulties in our lives, but we still keep judging the others. Emmanuel, in a message in the book uh, Spring of Life, Fonte Viva, I think it's in Fonte Viva or in Spring of Life, he says something that's really interesting. He says, when we look at others and we see the speck in their eyes, we usually don't look at their feet. And I find that to be so interesting because he says, we don't look at their feet and see that their feet are bleeding from the amount of walk that they had to go through, for the amount of effort that they put on their lives to go through what they go through. And then we judge the speck, but we don't see the work. We don't see what's behind. We never see what's behind. Never. And probably that's why we judge the other. Because when we make a mistake, we know why we made the mistake. And we excuse ourselves, we justify our mistakes based on whatever excuse that I want to keep. Whatever excuse. Oh, I did this because, and then we explain it. The other person makes a mistake. If the other person tends to explain why she or he did it, we say, oh, that's just an excuse. Why? Why the other person cannot explain and I can explain and say that my beam is so much important than your speck? Because we are so still, we have so much pride, and we think of ourselves in of forgive me, but sometimes when we're talking about this, about pride, or about these vicissitudes or these problems that we have inside of ourselves, we have to we try to not include everybody, but it is so hard to not to see that our problems come from our own selfishness, in our own pride, that it is hard not to see the same thing on the others, and that's seeing the speck on the other's eyes as much as I see the beam on my eye. Once we learn how to go a little bit beyond that, once we learn how to understand that the other is as much guilty as I am, and if I can look at the other person as if I'm looking at myself, I'm going to see something different. That's why it is so hard to put myself in the shoes of the other person. Because we never know what the other person is going through. We never know. But it is a very good exercise for us to get out of this idea that I am better than the other person. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. 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 We have to do that. And that's the thing. Uh we hear this, right? My question is, do I say that? Because we hear, okay, we hear, but do I say this? And by do I say this, what I'm asking is, do I think about it? It's not saying. It's not, when we see a person that has more money, or we see a person that has a better life, or a better, it's the grass is greener on my neighbor's yard, right? The grass is always greener on my neighbor's yard. Is it really? So, do I think about this? Do I really feel it? It's not just think about it, but do I have this feeling inside of myself? If I do, if I still do, I still have a lot of work to do because I'm seeing the speck on the other person's eye still. And it is something that takes a long time, just like what Paul says. It's a law. It's almost a law inside of myself. And to change that, I have to put a lot of work inside of it. I have to put lots of work because it is very rare that we don't compare ourselves to others. It's almost impossible not to compare ourselves to others. Almost impossible because that's how life is. We compare if it's this thing is dark and it's this light, this thing is light. If this room is darker than the other, what do I need to do? This room, it has too much light. This room, this, or whatever. We are always comparing things. So it's not wrong to compare. The comparison itself is not wrong. What is wrong, or what can bring us down, is the judgment of the other. Realizing that they are different is fine. I am different from Dara. I have lots of differences. We're not born. Even people who are born under the same roof are completely different. So why wouldn't? So it's not hard to understand that comparing is natural. The problem is not the comparison. The problem is the judgment. The problem is the condemnation. The problem is putting the other one down. Because when I put the other one down, it automatically means that I am better than him. And am I really better than the other? That's the big question. Because it's not about the other. It's always about myself. Just like Gandhi said in the beginning, the problem with Christianity is not Christianity, is the Christians. It's us. It's what are we doing with the message? We want the message, apparently, to apply the message to the others. Oh, you should be better. You should be here listening to this. You should be doing this. And what about me? What should I be doing? Should I be telling the other one to be here? Why? Am I better than the other one? So seeing the speck in the other's eyes and forgetting that we have beams on ours, it means that we are forgetting to apply the message to us. I'm forgetting to apply the message to us. The other person, each one of us, will walk with our own legs in our own time, do whatever I need to do. Jesus never forced anyone to do. He always invited people. Go, he says. Go and do not and sin no more, and no, don't make any more mistakes. He doesn't even call the girl to come to him. No, he says, go, you are free. You go and do whatever you want to do, but please don't do it wrong again. But he doesn't force her, because it's not about forcing or imposing anything on others. It's about the message that we bring within, that we bring to our hearts, to our situation, and we apply that message to ourselves. So, uh, as I always do, I always invite people to come and not to come to read the message, and this one is very, very small, very small. It's a page. It's items 9 and 10 from chapter number 10. Blessed are the merciful, of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So I invite everyone to read the message. Um, like I usually do. Of course, I read the message and I think about it. But when you come up here to talk about something, you come up with something that's different. So it is always very interesting to read the page, so that we can have what Kardec said. And to read is different than just to hear. So if we can read these items 9 and 10 from this chapter, I think it will be very, very interesting for you to get even more out of this passage than what I said here. So hopefully I didn't throw too many specks on your eyes, because I cannot see them because of the beam in my eye. So hopefully um, we can all start seeing less specks, and reducing our beams to specks as well. And I thank you a lot for sticking to me once again. Next month and the months ahead, hopefully you're going to see other people here other than me. I've been speaking here for about 6 months, I guess, in English. Um, Now Flavio came here, so hopefully Flavio will be able to come here soon as well. It's very nice when Flavio comes here and gives us, these. He brings so many good ideas. It's so interesting. So I think that's it for tonight. Are we gonna have passes? Are we gonna? Okay, so I'm going to finish off the transmission online. Um, this next Saturday, I would like to tell everyone, this next Saturday, we're going to have um, this guy here. It's called, his name is Roberto Barbosa. He's coming from Brazil, and he's going to do a lecture at night talking about spiritual surgery. It will be in Portuguese. We will be online as well, but it will be very, very interesting, starting at 7 p.m. On Saturday night. So tune in. It will be very, very, very interesting. During the week, he will do some other work here, but this work will be local. There's no transmission to it, so I'm not gonna mention anything for the online people. But once again, thank you very much for sticking to us. We're gonna have the passes here, and I'll be back right after that to do our final prayer. And to you guys online, thank you for joining us, and have a great week.